Hello, George Spicer Year 2, Miss Buckley here again. It's our last writing video. I can't believe it. We've done weeks and weeks of the most brilliant writing together, and this is our last writing video for our work packs. So let's make it a really good one. So this week we've been looking all at the Arctic and all about the Inuit people, as well as polar bears and snowy owls and narwhals and things like that. And our writing this week is on polar bears. We're writing a factual piece of information text all about polar bears, which is very exciting because I love polar bears. So to get us started and to warm up our brains and to get ready, we are going to use adjectives to describe a polar bear. Who can remember what an adjective is? It is a describing word. Words we use to describe things. So the white carpet, the tall green tree, something like that. We are using it to describe things. So I'm going to put up a picture of a polar bear now. You've got 1 minute. Think about every single adjective you could use to describe the polar bear, because that will make your factual information much more exciting. Let's go.
Here we are, ready for our starter activity. Can you name as many adjectives as you possibly can to describe this polar bear? And remember, if you're using more than one in a sentence, you have to use a comma in between those words. So I might say the sharp, big claws. The polar bear has pointy, small ears, black, beady eyes. What are some adjectives that you could use to describe the polar bear? Have a minute and off you go.
Hopefully now you have a piece of paper full of adjectives that are going to describe the polar bear. That'll come in a lot of use when we are doing our writing in a little bit. So now it's time to move on to the success criteria. So what are we really looking for this week? Interesting sentence starters. Now you've got a whole list of them on your work pack this week. So making sure you're starting every sentence in a different way, not just the polar bear has, the polar bear is, whereabouts, what are they doing? Use the interesting sentence starters that are on the work pack for you and make your writing much more exciting to read. The next one is adjectives. So making sure we are describing. Now I know you can do this because you've just written loads of adjectives to describe the polar bear. But making sure you're describing the ice, describing the way the polar bear moves, maybe we're talking about him moving over the ice. So making sure we're using adjectives to get some good description in there as well. Next thing is conjunctions. Now it's really key to use conjunctions in your writing. It makes it a lot more interesting for the reader. It really takes your writing to the next step by tying those ideas together and creating more long and wonderful sentences. So make sure you're using and, because, but, although, so, however. All of these conjunctions that are going to make our sentences fantastic and join all our ideas together. And we're looking at factual information. So we're looking at making sure that we are writing facts about the polar bear. Now, there are videos that are attached onto the pack for you to watch all about polar bears. If you already know some things, even better. But use these videos and have a look and see if you can find out anything about the polar bear that will help you, because we're looking for factual information. And finally, our extension, if you're feeling super fancy and you want to try really hard this week, we're looking at apostrophes and commas. We are using apostrophe for omission and for possession. So using for omission is when you're getting those words together, couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't. Apostrophes for possession if it belongs to them. The polar bear's claws, the polar bear's ears, things like that. Finally, our commas in a list for your adjectives. I know you're probably bored of me saying it, but make sure you use commas in the list for the adjectives. And that is your success criteria for today. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some sentence work before we get started on doing our big piece of writing. We're going to look at sentence work, and we're going to look at making sure we are using conjunctions to stretch our writing further, to make it more interesting for the reader, more fun for you to write, and to take our sentence to the next level. So I've written some sentence starters for you, just some simple sentences that I think you can improve by using a conjunction. So let's have a look.
So our sentence focus this week is using conjunctions to expand and elongate our sentences, making them stronger and more interesting. So we're going to use a conjunction to make these simple sentences more interesting. Polar bears have big claws. The Arctic is cold. The polar bear eats seals. all of them fine sentences, but I know that we can expand them using a conjunction, and that's why I haven't put a full stop, so we can expand them and we have room for more words. So by using and, because, but, also, although, however, all of these words can help us make our sentences even better and more interesting for the reader. So polar bears have big claws because they need to balance on thin ice. The Arctic is cold, however the polar bear manages to survive there all year round. The polar bear eats seals and can often have to hunt them for days at a time. So we're making sure that we are making our sentences more interesting, longer and better for the reader.
Great, so now you've had a good practice of some sentence work, which is perfect. Now we're going to have a look at the modelled right to hopefully give you some inspiration, to give you some ideas, maybe to learn something about the polar bear, just to make sure that you are writing exactly in the best possible way that you can. So let's have a look at my modelled right and then it's nearly your turn.
So here is the modelled right to help you with a bit of inspiration and to learn something else about the polar bear. The polar bear can be found in the Arctic. The polar bear is an interesting and complex creature that roams around the ice all year round. A polar bear has big, wide claws because it needs to be balanced and walk safely over thin ice sometimes. The polar bear is a carnivore, which means it predominantly eats meat. The polar bear's skin is actually black because it needs to absorb all of the heat from the sun as it gets so cold at night.
Brilliant, so that's it, we're all done. That is your video for this week and it is now your turn to have a go at writing a fantastic factual piece all about the polar bear. Remember to watch those videos that are attached on the pack and remember to think of all the things you know about the polar bear. Get in those adjectives and get in those conjunctions, okay? Well done everybody, superstars this week as always, and I can't wait to see what you write. Bye!